Thank you, Chair. I have a strict limit of something like 12 minutes. But please, the main reason why I'm here today, why I enjoy the privilege, is that I want to engage in discussion with you, to engage in mutual learning. So we'll try to make the best out of these few minutes, and then I will be around during lunch this afternoon and look forward to coming back to Astana and Kazakhstan in the future as well. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the roses, Chair. You have a small, a very brief commercial in the slides, so I will skip them now and just limit it to saying whatever I say is not based on academic studies. It is based on the experience, the gut feeling I collected during 20 years of serving in my own company as a consultant, and it is based on the 7, 8, 9 years that I collected in my own company serving as a seed capitalist. So you have all the details there. I skip it now. If you have questions, you're welcome to put them in lunch when it is to my specific presentation. Now, we heard quite a lot about tax incentives as one instrument, and you might wonder why a German puts it here on the slide, because we have no tax profits, we have no tax releases, we are a high tax country. We have them neither for research and development, nor do we have them for seed investment. Why is that? I think that tax releases are a very good measure to boost more of the same. That is, if you have a flourishing seed capital market and you just lack a little bit more, you need 30% more of the same, then you can encourage angels, seed capitalists to do so. And you can see that very clearly by looking at the experience made in the UK. They abolished the law for something like 2-3 years, and there was immediately a dip in the number of investments. So my feeling is, for a country like Kazakhstan, it doesn't hurt to have a favorable tax system. But in my view, it is definitely not the one road to go forward on. We have experiences, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon world. We have quite a lot at state level in the US. We have it in the UK. We have it in Ireland. And Charles, you mentioned we also have it in countries like, for instance, France. But overall, tax incentives are not an appropriate means of developing the competence that it takes to invest in early stages. So what else could we do? Well, if we believe that our seed market is non-professional, it's not good enough to have more of the same, but we need a new quality. We need particularly the competence. So I was fascinated by the contribution you gave when you presented the situation in China. Seed capital is not so much about money. There's enough money around with equity enough. It is about the competence associated with it. Now, how can we develop this market? Well, the public sector itself could say, I'm a seed capitalist. I employ some civil servants and they will run the game. Quite a number of countries tried, most of them failed, amongst them Sweden. It's not so easy. Now, what could you do instead? What could the public sector do to stimulate the market? Now, since you mentioned, maybe it's not a good idea if the public runs it on its own, but if it could be something like a co-investment scheme. And that is already one step ahead of the hybrid funds. And that is something where I would like to at least briefly share some experience we've made in Germany. In co-investment schemes, we have organizations, like for instance the Federal German Bank for Reconstruction and Development, KfW, who do not closely investigate a specific case. They do not have the time, and probably they don't have the competence to do so. what they do is very much in line with what you mentioned. They scrutinize the investor. If the investor has a good track record, they list the investor as a lead investor, and then it is the private organization in the driver's seat. And the investment by the KfW is pari passu. So now a very brief commercial for my own company. One of the daughter companies of the companies I represent, namely More Invest, is accredited as lead investor, and we enjoy the privilege of working under the umbrella of the KfW. And that, I think, is a very reasonable approach, because it decreases the risk for the private investor. It allows the private investor to put his limited money in more baskets, and it provides an additional, as you mentioned, quality certificate, saying this appears to be reasonable and it is kind of an easy entry into additional public support activities. Now, if in a country like Germany, where we don't have a culture of seed capitalism, I think we are really lagging behind Kazakhstan in that respect. Because in Germany, we are very much afraid of failure. We are not so dedicated to success. My experience here is you love success. You are not frowned upon as being newly rich. People adore you if you're a self-made man. Now, that's very much the US approach. And if you find envy, you find it of very different types. So in Germany, the type of envy you find is, if he has something I don't have, he shouldn't have it. If you find envy in the US, and my feeling is even in Kazakhstan, it is, if he has it, I want to have it as well. And that creates a fighting spirit. And that is something to base upon. Now, if you feel you still have to do something in that field, then maybe what we call the high-tech founder fund could be an idea as well. Again, the approach is that there is no scrutiny of the individual case in terms of evaluation. It is very difficult to put a price tag on a young company. So it's very standard conditions. It's always 500,000 euros. And you don't get them as a real equity, but you get them as a close to equity loan. So in terms of bankruptcy, it's treated as equity. As long as the company is not bankrupt, it has to pay 10% interest rate. And the share this fund, which is a hybrid fund, the share that this fund gets in the startup company is always the same. The only demand is that there is a convincing concept, an entrepreneur, and at least 20% of the necessary budget put up by the entrepreneur and eventually his team, if he has a venture capitalist behind him as well. Now, there are quite a number of possibilities of going deeper into it. And this is about angel investment and it's about seed capital. But one of the main recommendations I want to put forward, anyhow, although it is not fully in line with the theme, is instead of only increasing the available seed capital, and that definitely is a main avenue, you should also, in parallel, look at possibilities to decrease the need for seed capital by trying to close the gap that you have between research and commercialization from the other side as well. That is, not just pulling the private sector closer to public research, but by also providing motivating incentives to public research to come closer to the market. And that, I think, is a field where the Germans do particularly well. There are a multitude of different schemes where, for instance, the Helmholtz research centers, where, for instance, the Leibniz research centers, where universities receive money to buy external competence from private consultancies to professionalize their commercialization activities. So it's in the range of something like 500,000 euros per year per institution. So this is substantial money. There is money available to create the kind of community that many of you have been asking for. And it is always under the label of excellence or elite. So we run a lot of competitions, inviting proposals from each and every one. So for instance, for what we call the research camping, the German Federal Ministry of Research and Higher Education received something like 120, 140 applications and picked 10 winners. And those 10 winners all had one thing in common. They brought together public and private organizations, industrial companies, research labs, venture capitalists, geographically, locally, on one campus. So closeness, proximity really is an argument here. And I think, yes, everyone should be given a chance. But when really deciding where to put your money, you should always put it there where you expect the highest return on investment. In whatever currency you decide on your own, whether it's number of jobs, whether it's increased tax income, whether it's cleaner air, whether it's number of Nobel Prizes, whatever. But you should always try to pick those that are the most promising, because apart from the money, that will provide a leverage effect to the winners reputation-wise. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we have some few minutes for discussion as well.